Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Wednesday night live stream for week 2 of the 2025 fantasy football season. Over the course of the next hour, I'm talking all things fantasy football related. So if you do have a question, make sure you ask in the live chat, and or if you want priority, you can ask via the super chat. Regardless of how you send in your question, make sure you include your scoring format, whether that be a half PPR, full PPR. The more context you provide, the easier it'll be for me to answer said questions. But without further ado, again, we'll get into answering some questions. I know, again, earlier today, I did post my top 40 wide receiver rankings. So if you guys are interested in regards to which way I am swaying, in regards to a specific wide receiver, that video hopefully will kind of lead you in the right direction, specifically for this upcoming Thursday, as we have the Commanders taking on the Green Bay Packers on a short week. Very exciting matchup between two teams that hopefully it'll be an exciting, high-scoring contest. Again, there is a little bit of information regarding injuries that continues to, become privy to us in regards to the potential of Brock Purdy not playing. I'm sure many of you will ask regarding that. Christian McCaffrey did not practice today, but that is primarily because it's still Wednesday. Thursday and Friday practices are the most relevant, and we'll continue to monitor these situations. The primary reason we have, Devontae Smith specifically as the thumbnail today is because Dallas Goedert didn't play because he is dealing with a knee sprain. In the event in which Dallas Goedert is absent, just want to first and foremost just kind of reference this stat. I've mentioned it over the years because Dallas Goedert has missed so much significant time over the course of 2022, 2023, and 2024. Over the course of the last 3 seasons, in games in which Dallas Goedert has missed, there have been 16 of them during the regular season. In his absence, Devontae Smith is averaging 14.83 half PPR fantasy points per game. So in the event in which this occurs, and this week, where he has an already advantageous matchup against the defense that gave up the most points to wide receivers in week 1, the Kansas City Chiefs, again, Devontae Smith could be of incredible value this week. Okay. Also, final thing I wanted to mention before I get into today's content, again, as a quick reminder, of course, I'm partnered with Betr over the course of this season, not only providing picks, but Sunday morning rankings. Besides, again, the rankings that I post here via video, and of course the Patreon. You, of course, can get Sunday morning rankings every single week for the remainder of the season, half PPR, full PPR. All you have to do is sign up using code Andrew, make that first time deposit minimum of $10, and make that first time play within a real cash play minimum of $1, and you'll be able to join that email list and get those rankings every single Sunday morning. More information down below in the description. Thank you very much. And of course, if you sign up today, just like I mentioned before, you get a free $10 via Betr. So of course, if you are interested and you are eligible based on your location, take advantage of that. Thank you. All right, let's get into answering questions. Juice Fino says, good evening, Andrew. In a full PPR, I have Dak Prescott and Bo Nix. Okay, so if I'm playing one or the other, I'm still leaning in the direction to which I prefer to play Bo Nix because of the rushing upside. Again, that is just how I strategically approach fantasy football. I'm always looking for rushing upside for my quarterbacks because that really does unlock their potential for an even higher ceiling. So Bo Nix is someone that I'm still not giving up on based on one singular week's performance. It's not like last year he didn't have a game in which he threw 3 interceptions. That occurred. I mean, if we go back to last season, let's just pull this up because I remember it off the top of my head. Bo Nix 2024. If we're just looking at his game logs from last season, there's a game in which funny enough, it was against Indianapolis where he had 3 interceptions, but also threw 3 touchdowns. So again, there is potential for the high risk, high reward, but I'm definitely leaning in that direction. As for your next question, says I need one wide receiver between Cheetah, which is Tyreek Hill, Deebo Samuel, Pearsall. Of those available, the highest ranked receiver of the bunch as of right now, based on today's video, would have been Cheetah. Pearsall second, Deebo third. As for your final question, it says tight end Ingram, Njoku, or Hunter Henry. Ingram is dealing with a little bit of a calf injury, if I'm not mistaken. We'll keep that monitored as we progress. As of right now, under the assumption that he is available, we'd probably lean in that direction. Otherwise, I'd go with Njoku this week. Thank you. Football is Life sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew, in a half PPR rest of season, Kamara, ETN, or JSN? Of those 3 available, I would go with Jackson Smith and Jigba. Number 1, Kamara, 2, ETN, 3. Thank you. We had a question from Fantasy Forecast who says, I need a running back. Okay, I need running back help. My only running backs are Swift, Bucky Irving, Charbonnet, Montgomery. Should I trade my injured Kittle for his JCM bill? Interesting. Okay. PPR, I have Fannin and Juwan as my tight ends. Okay, so here's the thing. Besides the fact that George Kittle is going to miss the next 4 games with, of course, the hamstring injury, there's always the possibility of a slower than, potential normal return, and or because of his age, the potential for re-injury because of a soft tissue injury like that. So the idea of getting out from underneath Kittle to try to get some RB depth, to kind of give yourself a little bit more, oomph for the next couple of weeks to come, I don't mind it. I just, again, If I'm in your position with Swift, Bucky, Sharps, and Montgomery, I think you're fine. I don't think you have to make a move like this. It's only when another injury was to occur would I be looking to try to make a move of this caliber. Okay, Shung Bull has sent in a question. Shung, I don't see anything attached to it. In the future, can you do me a favor and just attach whatever your specific message and or question is to the super? Because as of right now, I'm looking in the chat and I don't see any messages from you. So in the future, make sure to do that. As of right now, please go ahead and retype your question in the chat. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. All right, until we get Shung Bull's question, we'll continue on, in which we find Javarius, who says, do I trade Kyler for Herbert in a half PPR? I mean, look, Herbert had one really good week here. Now, was it against the Kansas City Chiefs? Absolutely. But I guess in the future weeks, we're going to know whether or not this Kansas City Chiefs defense is actually legit and whether or not Herbert is actually legit with the upcoming performances. Obviously, Kyler Murray has a lot of value because he is a consistent rusher, though Justin Herbert did find himself rushing for a pretty good yardage count in week 1. Is that something that is going to continue? If that stays a consistent part of his game and he can stay healthy, then he'll be just as valuable as Kyler. But in the event in which that starts to fade away, and so do the passing touchdowns on a consistent basis because of Omarion Hampton being a far more like utilized piece of the offense, then at that point I kind of just go back to Kyler. Because we know what kind of production that he's going to put forth. We know that he has been the number 8, 9, and 10th ranked quarterback over the course of the last couple seasons here. He is just pure consistency. If you wanted to just go for the potential upside, you could. But again, there's a lot of risk and reward. I mean, even if, just think about it this way. Late last season, like the final 10 games of the year, Herbert was a top 12 quarterback. He was on average 12, averaging about like 18 fantasy points per game next to Darnold. So again, even the risk, quote unquote, with Kyler going to Herbert, it's not enough of a risk to where I'm like, oh, I have to pick Kyler. If you wanted Herbert, I don't have an issue with it. Half PPR flex Genti or Egbuka. Yeah, it's got to be, it's just Genti there, especially because of the half PPR format. Thanks, my man. Appreciate it. Xavier says, trade for Devontae Smith or Kenneth Walker. I have Ridley, DK, Pearsall, Shakir, Benson as trade options. Worth the investment on either. Also, when to buy low on Achane. I mean, if you wanted to theoretically buy low on Achane, you would do it now because I don't think, it's going to get much worse than the receiving yard total that he put together in week 1. I think with Tua, if Tua is healthy for the remainder of the season, that's when, of course, you would want to have Achane ready to go. And I think going forward, he'll probably see a lot more receiving upside in comparison to what he demonstrated in week 1. To which, at that point, this may be the only time to buy low on him technically based on what his potential for upside is because we know he's a 20-point per week kind of running back. And especially in a full PPR, we're talking about 22 to 24 potential points, especially if the running game starts to actually pick up some momentum there. Now, are we trading for Devontae Smith? It's purely dependent on how long we could potentially see someone like Dallas Goedert miss time if the knee sprain is something of a significance. If not, then he is just purely a thumbnail today. Am I trading for Kenneth Walker? Not as of yet. I'd give it another week before I can really make a commitment with confidence as to whether or not I want to actually utilize draft cap or a player to be able to bring him into the lineup if he's not going to be able to immediately contribute as it stands. Dave sends in a question, says in a 10-team league, half PPR, do I trade Allen and BTJ for Baker and Chase? I could justify it, but ultimately, I think in terms of total value, Allen and BTJ I'd rather have the Allen BTJ side, ultimately. Go Bills sends in a question, says PPR pick one, wide receiver, 1 flex. Okay. And it says Sutton, DK, Myers, and Kamara. Cool. So if we're playing in a full PPR, of those available options, technically in a full PPR, I'm going Myers, and then I'm probably going, I kind of want to go Kamara, usually, outside of week 1 of this year. Usually Kamara is the answer as the number 2. So I'll lean in that direction, and I'll hope that, of course, Spencer Rattler will look at his direction. So Myers, Kamara in a full PPR. In the event in which, again, we're a little bit worried about Kamara, it would then go Myers and Sutton, theoretically speaking. Thank you. Oni sends in a question. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it, Oni. It says trade 1, Juwan Johnson for Rome Odunze. Trade 2, Walker for ETN. I'm perfectly fine with the Walker for ETN trade. If Bayshaw Tootin is on the waivers, I would also potentially pick that up in doing so. As for trading Jawan Johnson for Odunze, if Jawan Johnson is not a contributing factor to your team and he is purely just your backup tight end that you were able to pick up and utilize as trade leverage, I have no issue. I would like the idea of trading for Odunze here. Shane sends in a question. Thank you, Shane. Says in a full PPR, trade Jonathan Taylor and Hollywood Brown or Charbonnet for Breece Hall and Omarion Hampton. Yeah, I am happy with the idea of probably, if you're in need of running back depth, I would say that the Taylor and Hollywood Brown for Hall and Hampton is fine. Because, again, the reason you would make a trade of this caliber is because you're looking for RB depth. Because ultimately, yeah, that's the only reason you would make this trade. So you're not trying to move Charbonnet because you're trying to keep the RB depth. You're trying to move Hollywood because, again, he is a short-term plug-and-play in the absence of Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy. So JT Hollywood for Hall and Hampton, I think, is perfectly fine in that circumstance. Thank you. All right, let me go to the live chat. Let's see if Shung ended up typing the question. Where are you at, Shung? All right, Shung Bull says, I have Jalen Hurts, I have Chase Brown, I have Harvey, Nico, Evans, Ricky, Njoku, Pickens, Shakir, Kraft, and Chubb. Should I trade Pickens for David Montgomery or roll with Nick Chubb? Yeah, if I was in your position, seeing as to what you currently have on roster, you're definitely in need of another running back. I'm not rolling with Nick Chubb. I would rather go out and potentially make a trade of this caliber. But like I've been saying for the last couple of days, if you can, try to trade for someone like Omarion Hampton, even if it costs you more. I think in the long term, it is going to be the more valuable potential stake rather than a potential, path in which we're getting David Montgomery. Which again, I don't think David Montgomery is, valueless. He's incredibly valuable, especially if the offense improves. But from what we saw on Sunday against an elite defense, they definitely didn't look all too good. So again, first suggestion would be try to go after Hampton. If you can't, and this is the best you can get, then I'm fine with that because it definitely is needed considering Harvey and Chubb's current status. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. All right, continuing on. We had a question that came in from Carson, who says, in a full PPR, I need advice to start for my wide receiver 2 and flex. We have Tyreek, A.J. Brown, Zay Flowers, and Emeka Egbuka. Which two? In a full PPR, Zay Flowers has to play. And then A.J. Brown versus Tyreek Hill pretty much is who I'm playing. One or the other in a full PPR as my number 2 option. I think at that point it becomes I think Tyreek Hill is probably the answer. In the event in which Goddard potentially doesn't play, at that point I would be like, okay, you know what? I think there's enough of a justification to then upgrade A.J. Brown to play him alongside of Zay Flowers in that circumstance. Thank you. Buffalo Bill sends it a question. It says, full PPR. I got offered Alvin for Hampton. Thoughts? Look, I don't want the week 1 participation of targets to sour me on Kamara, but ultimately, I think you just keep Hampton. Just keep him. I think that is the play. I've been telling people to trade for him for a reason. If Herbert's going to continue to play as well as he did, and that offense is going to be one of the best in the league, then Hampton by association is going to be that much more valuable, especially once the touchdowns start rolling in. Because not every game is this Herbert guy coming out to throw 3 touchdowns. So Hampton will get a value. And again, he doesn't have to play the Chiefs every week. So just keep it as of right now. Let's see here. Alejo sends it a question. Or Alejo is probably the way that it's pronounced if I don't put... Anyway, Alejo says, in a full PPR, Devontae Adams, Marvin Harrison Jr., or Hollywood Brown as my wide receiver 2. Of those available, again, I did end up posting my wide receiver rankings today. Hollywood Brown is a significantly higher rank than either of those other alternative options, especially considering the target opportunity share that he will witness in the meanwhile, while, of course, guys like Rashee Rice are suspended and Xavier Worthy is dealing with a shoulder injury. So Hollywood is my suggestion there, my man. Thank you. CJ417 says, in a full PPR, I've got Hall, Travion Henderson, Javonte Williams, Charbonnet as my running backs. My quarterback is Prescott and or May. Would you trade Prescott, Javonte Williams for Fields and Stevenson to flex? As of right now, I think you can survive with what the current situation looks like with your quarterback, with Drake May and Prescott. So if I was in your position, I keep it as is. I think having the potential of Javonte Williams is very valuable. Had you told me you're playing in a super flex, I'd be like, okay, sure. But considering it's a double flex league, I don't want Stevenson. I'd rather have Javonte in this circumstance going forward. Thank you. GBG Tony says comments. All right, Tony, thanks, man. I appreciate it. In the future, please do me a favor, GBG. Try try to attach it to the question if possible. Thanks, man. Because I'm looking at the live chat right now, and unfortunately, I don't see anything sent in by you. Oh, never mind. There it is. See it. Okay, GBG says, thoughts on me trading Tyreek Hill and David Montgomery for Kyren Williams and Matthew Golden? Okay. For perspective, my running backs would be Kyren, Chase Brown. My receivers would be CeeDee Lamb and Sutton. Yeah, sounds good to me. I mean, again, the way that I look at it, Tyreek Hill and Kyren, right? I'd much rather have Kyren Williams. And then when we're talking about Matthew Golden and Montgomery, because you are mentioning your current running back depth consisting of Kyren, Chase Brown, I would say you're probably in a safe enough position to be able to lose the running back depth there. You're getting enough in return. And of course, you have the late term value of Golden because you don't need to utilize him now while you have Lamb and Sutton in the meanwhile. So yeah, I'm okay with that. You get out from underneath the potential of whatever scary disaster Miami could end up becoming in the not too distant future if everything doesn't break in the right direction here. Old Jay Running sends in a question. Jay, hope you're doing well. Says in a PPR running back, I have Chase Brown, Omarion Hampton, Pacheco, Jordan Mason, Braylon Allen. Do I drop anyone for Scadaboo, Ollie Gordon, Benson, Blue, or Tootin? Yeah, look, if I was in your position, I would feel relatively comfortable dropping. I think Braylon Allen is still going to be very much so utilized. So if you're looking for Braylon Allen to be someone that is purely like, hey, you may get to start him when you have a bipocalypse, sure, he can perfectly suffice. But if you want a running back that could theoretically take over his backfield, I would say Scadaboo and Tootin would be the ones that you can theoretically go for as lottery tickets. Is this the right move? Well, as of right now, considering you have Chase Brown, Hampton, that you can blindly start going forward, I think it gives you a little bit of cushion for the meanwhile until we get bipocalypses to hit from weeks 5 and beyond. So I don't mind the idea of going after a Tootin or Scadaboo in this circumstance. Do you have to make the move? No. Because honestly, Braylon Allen could get a better workload share going forward. I doubt it, though, because, again, he's probably not going to see much receiving workload. And based on how that role kind of already transpired in week 1, I think he's pretty much capped at his value. So at most in a given week, Braylon Allen has to score a touchdown, and he has to be given 10 touches. And then at that point, he can score 10 points a week. Otherwise, I would try to go after probably Scadaboo in this circumstance. Thanks, man. Jay sends in a question. Thanks, Jay. I appreciate it. It says Hollywood, Jacoby, Brees, or Hampton. Flex, half PPR. Of those available options, it's really difficult not to just play Hollywood again this week. Again, the opportunity share is it's just gonna be there. The offense is predicated on getting the ball to the slot position, and Hollywood seems like he is, in my mind, he just has so much upside there. So that's probably the direction I lean in. If I wasn't going to go there, I would go with Brees Hall second. Thank you. It says also, I have Tracy Mason or Quentin Johnston in another league for the flex in a full PPR. In a full PPR, it kind of does sway the potential here, to which I'm either going Tracy or Johnston. As of right now, I would probably say Tracy is the play between the two. Now, if you wanted to just roll with the momentum of Quentin Johnston, you perfectly can. But I don't think that they're going to be... I mean, it's tough. Again, off of a one-game sample size as to what this new Chargers look like, it's difficult to say that immediately he's going to have another successful, incredible 20-point week. Probably not the case. But it may just be safer to go with Johnston in comparison to a Tracy, considering how much of a bumbling mess that Giants offense was. Okay, so as of right now, let's stick with Johnston. If I change my mind, I'll let you know when we get to this upcoming Friday, Saturday, or even Sunday morning live stream. Jay, thanks. Last, Keon Coleman, Egbuka, or Sutton in a full PPR. I'll take Sutton there. Thanks, man. Emily Doyle sends in a question. Says, hi, Andrew. Pick up the Chargers defense or keep the Lions? As of right now, I would rather play the Lions defense this week against Caleb Williams. Thank you. Cyanide sends in a question. Says, I've got Ferguson in a PPR. Rank, waiver, Fannin, Jawan, or Kincaid. If we're talking about long-term value, I mean, whenever you're associated with Josh Allen, I think there is value to be had there. Again, there's a lot of pieces that are going to be continuing to contribute within this offense for the Bills and are fighting for touches. As of right now, considering all of them are theoretically available in your league, what I probably end up doing is I pick up like Kincaid and I pick up Fannin and I drop Ferguson. I pick up basically two tight ends, and then let's just test it. Let's start Kincaid this week, and then if Fannin's legit, then you have him at least. So I'm basically doing a 1-for-2 swap in this circumstance. Thanks, man. All right, good luck. Sent in a question. Good luck. I don't see anything attached. Hopefully you typed in the chat recently. to which I can answer. There it is. Good luck says, in a full PPR, pick 2 receivers from this group. I've got Tyreek Hill, Cortland Sutton, Keon Coleman, Ricky Pearsall. Tyreek looked like he didn't want to play last week. I'm leaning towards Sutton and Pearsall. That's fine. I don't have an issue with that. I think, again, based on what we saw from Pearsall, again, he may be a little bit of a downgrade comparatively with Mac Jones now, but Mac Jones also made BTJ what he is. Because because Brian Thomas Jr. with Mac Jones was averaging over 10 targets per game. So I would assume as the number 1 wide receiver, he'll still be of value. So I don't mind the idea of going Sutton and Pearsall there and avoiding the potential Tyreek Hill and pretty much making him kind of earn his starting role within your offense. I don't have an issue with that. Thank you. All right, we continue on from a question that comes in from Limerent, who says, in a half PPR, start 1. Would it be dumb to start one of Booty, Tillman, or Austin over Walker Charbonnet until their situation resolves itself? The issue is that their situation is not going to quote-unquote resolve itself. There is no resolution. It is just going to be a two-headed monster going forward from what I can anticipate to see unless an injury was to occur. So if you're going to be potentially looking towards one of these alternative options of receivers in comparison to playing one of Walker or Charbonnet, I'd rather just play Charbonnet because of how much success, of course, that Jets offense found on the ground against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think Charbonnet could put together a very, solidified, kind of, I guess, productive week this week without needing a touchdown, while these other receivers are going to definitely need that within the upcoming contest. Carlos sends in a question, says, full PPR. Was proposed Devontae Smith for Keon Coleman. Somebody wants to give you Smith for Coleman. Man, the thing is, there's something so valuable about potentially being the number 1 of a Josh Allen offense that I kind of want to just see what Coleman can present. Because imagine Coleman has another great week here. Just imagine, theoretically speaking. Then at that point, you're not going to want to get rid of him. Now, if he puts up a fluke production week and he has 3.5 fantasy points, then you'll be like, oh man, I probably should have gotten rid of it. But then at least just in the same way in which we can't blindly play Devontae Smith every week, we can't do that with Keon Coleman, but at least the offense is going to throw the ball more. I don't know. At this point, I think I'm holding. I just want to continue to see it. ZY sends in a question. Says, full PPR 12-team league. Do I trade London for Zay and Igbuka? If you're looking to try to get incredible wide receiver depth because you're heavily lacking, then sure. But that's the only reason I would ever be making a move of this caliber. If I'm in a 12-team full PPR and I can start 3 wide receivers, 1 flex, or 2 wide receivers and 2 flex, that's a move I make in that circumstance. But if I'm only starting 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, I'm not sure if that's a move that is necessary to be made unless I'm dealing with, the Xavier-worthy kind of injury, and that's what's really plaguing your situation, and you're not trying to get put behind the 8 ball early on in a season in which you have 12 teams in your league and only 6 make the playoffs. Mr. Tresero Cinco sends in a question. Says, I need a tight end on the waiver. I have Johnson and Fannin in a full PPR. I'm picking up both. I'm dropping the worst player off of your bench, and I want to roster them both. I want to start Juwan Johnson this week against the 49ers, and then subsequently after, while I have Fannin on my bench, I'm pretty much giving him a role of test to see if, not like testosterone, I'm testing out whether or not he can actually perform on a consecutive weekly basis. And then once he has proven that he can actually do it for a multi-week certain, then at that point, I can just, sway away from Johnson or kind of just play matchups at that point. But yeah, I'm picking up both in this circumstance. Kent sends in a question. Thank you, Kent. I appreciate it. It says, I get 5+ points for 40-yard plays, 100 yards or more, 325+ yards passing, 6 point per passing touchdown, -2 per sack. I hate that. That's horrible. Jaden or Fields? Jaden Daniels or Fields? I mean, honestly, I don't know how this scoring format is theoretically going to detail these players because I've never played in a format like this. But if I was going to have to make a suggestion, I'm still playing Jaden Daniels there. As for your other question, it says 1 wide receiver, 1 running back, 2 flex. We have JCM, Ridley, Ricky, Pollard, Hill, Tillman, and Booty. If we're playing 1 running back, that running back is Pollard this week. If we're playing a number 1 wide receiver, I'd go with Hill, and I play Ricky in the flex alongside of, most likely, because we're playing in a PPR, I'd probably go Ridley alongside of him. KLYZM sends in a question. It says, in a full PPR, Keon Coleman, Ridley, or Judy? Thanks, man. As of right now, I'm going Keon Coleman there. Thanks, man. Kent Rowland sends in a question. It says, in a half PPR, 2 points per 40+ yards and 100+ yards. Tight end / 2 flex. We have JCM, DJ, Rome, Tillman, Jonnu, Kincaid, Ingram. Ingram's dealing with an injury. Even if he's healthy, I probably roll in his direction. In the event in which he is not, give me Kincaid. Then subsequently, I'm going to play both of the Chicago Bears wide receivers as your flex. I'll go with DJ and Rome there. Thank you. Orlando sends in a question. Says, this week and going forward, Kelsey or Warren? I legitimately think the answer is Warren. Like, Warren looked incredible. I mean, yeah. Warren pretty much confirmed our suspicions, right? And by getting the confirmation based on the talent that he is, he could have put up a Loveland performance. And at that point, we would have been worried and been like, you know what? It's probably just Kelsey. He's going to need time. But Warren doesn't need time. Like, it has arrived. PC sends in a question. It says, PPR pick one, JMO, Booty, Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet, or Calvin Austin. If I'm playing one in a full PPR format, it probably ends up either being Jameson Williams or Charbonnet, to which if Charbonnet is not going to get himself the clear receiving workload, which that is not, obviously shown to be the case, and we're not going to guarantee how much touches he's going to get, at that point, I'm just going to play JMO. Josh sends in a question. Thank you, Josh. Says, in a full PPR, Tyler, Warren, or Hawkinson? I'd rather play Warren. Colts or Vikings defense. As of this week, the Colts play against Denver and the Vikings play against the Atlanta Falcons. I'd honestly rather just play the Vikings. I feel like since last season, the Vikings have been a set it and forget it type of defense. So I'd probably just stick with that idea. As for the next question, it says pick two between Jacobs, Achane, Kamara. Jacobs and Achane are my two highest ranked going into this week. Thank you. Appreciate it, Josh. We had a question followed up after that. Let's see here. After Josh, we had Champagne Fantasy, who says, I have Knicks, Genty, K9, Neighbors, Devontae Smith, Jawan Johnson, Hunter, Pearsall. Should I make any moves in a full PPR? My bench consisting of Ray Davis, Jaden Blue, Ayomanor, Kirk, Mims, and Strange. I mean, look, as of right now, I think we could make some moves as to your bench, but I don't know what's available in your league. Am I actively trying to make moves within the players that you currently have? Sure. Again, as of right now, the players that I am the one player that I've said day over day is Omarion Hampton. If you can knock on that door and potentially get some value there in terms of not having to give up too much for him, that's probably a path in which I'm going about. I'm not, panicking on Knicks. Jawan Johnson, I'm assuming, is filling in for Kittle, who's probably injured for your team. Pearsall's great. Hunter's going to continue to be great. Neighbors will get back on track. Devontae Smith in the event in which, of course, Goddard misses times will be of value. So everything is solid here except for K9, to which I'm trying to improve upon that by maybe going after someone like Omarion Hampton. Thank you. We had a question from Sway who says, in a 12-team full PPR, Knicks or Penix? I would still rather play Bo Nix in this circumstance. Tracy or JCM? In a full PPR, considering JCM probably doesn't see himself much receiving workload in the near future because of Eckler's contributions, unless Eckler's going to miss any sort of semblance of time, is as of right now going to be Tracy going into this week. Thanks. GPG says, if Kyron trade falls through, how would you feel about trading Tyreek Hill for Breece or ETN? I'm okay with that. Especially because of the need at running back, I'm fine with it. But that's just because of the need. Outright in a vacuum, it may not be the greatest because, again, we still haven't seen the end of what we could potentially find with this Dolphins offense. I want to believe, at least, I want to be optimistic that the Dolphins offense isn't going to be what we witnessed in week 1 for 17 straight weeks. I think that they'll improve because really what they did was the worst possible performance they could have surmised or created. Firestone Production says, trade away Ladd and Myers for BTJ and JMO. To be honest, I don't see that being... I think that's a relatively even trade. Because if we're talking about a full PPR, because of what Myers is going to be exposed to, especially if Bowers misses any semblance of time here, I think it's an even trade to where I probably just hold. But if you wanted to make the move, I don't have an issue with it. I think it's relatively equal. Frank Grillo sends in a question. Thanks, Frank. I hope you're doing well, sir. Says, in my first league, I have Javonte Williams and Charbonnet or Tracy. Okay, of those available options going into this week, I do have Javonte Williams ranked the highest. Next question, second league, McLaurin or Devontae Smith? I'd rather play Devontae Smith, regardless of whether or not Dallas Goedert's available. Next, the 806 says, in a full PPR, Etienne or Pearsall with Mac Jones at quarterback? It's a great question. Again, I am confident that Pearsall is going to still be good with Mac Jones. That being said, I'll probably lean towards Etienne in what is expected to be the higher scoring game of the week. So for right now, I would hold on Pearsall until I can see Wood is potentially capable. If you didn't have as good of a alternative option, then you'd probably have to play Pearsall, but you do have ETN, so you're kind of saved. No love Matt sends in a question. Says in a half PPR, I need one flex between the following: Montgomery, GP, Devontae Smith, or Tyler Warren if Bowers is good to go. Okay, understood. So of those available in a half PPR, I'd either go Henderson or Warren, legitimately. As of right now, I think it's probably under the assumption that Bowers goes, you go with Warren as the alternative. In the event in which Bowers doesn't go, you go Warren as your tight end, and then you end up playing Henderson alongside of him. Thank you. In the event in which Goddard misses this week, then the answer at that point would be Devontae Smith over everybody. Thank you. Romeo sends in a question, says, should I trade Sampson for Pittman? Half PPR, 12-team league. Yes. Look, here's the thing about... Dylan Sampson has value. That is a given. As of tomorrow, we will see finally Quinshon Judkins practicing for the Cleveland Browns. And once that does take place, the timer will start. And what I mean by the timer is the amount of time that Sampson has to either establish himself as a 50-50 contributor within this backfield, or for him to eventually lose the job outright to Quinshon Judkins. So as of right now, if Sampson is not something that's going to be immediately started in your lineup, I think Pittman in the long run of more value. Elias Valencia sends in a question. Says, questions in the chat. You're awesome, Andrew. Only fantasy advice I trust. I appreciate the kind words, Elias. Let me see what I can see in the live chat, if in fact I can find your question. All right, Elias says, I'm in a full PPR double flex 14-man league. My team is Jaden Daniels, Alvin Kamara, Jordan Mason, CD Lamb, Ted McMillan, Pitts, Igbuka, Pearsall, Harvey, Mims, Jawan, Chigozimo Okonkwo. Okay. So it says, which players do you think I should package to try to get a running back depth? The waivers are very thin. Yeah, I would assume in a 14-team league, it's almost impossible to get anybody off of the waivers unless a catastrophic knee injury to a player. As of right now, in order to get some running back depth, in order to improve upon Jordan Mason, I may be looking to try to send Mason to the Aaron Jones manager and say, hey, listen, in case you end up losing out on this value, here it is. Or if you're trying to still keep Mason to have that depth for when bye weeks are to arise, at that point, you could probably end up moving either an Igbuka or a Pearsall and trying to get value in exchange from a running back. I think Igbuka, based on what he produced, I understand trading him away hurts mightily in a full PPR because of the investment you made, the risk you took. But if you're trying to at least make some moves here, I feel like that is going to be the needle mover within the trade conversations of your upcoming situation here. So if somebody wants to go ahead and pass off a Hampton or a Genty, you can move Pearsall, you can move Igbuka, or you can potentially even try to move. I mean, you don't really have any other lesser options unless you're like, hey, listen, I'm ready to get rid of Tet. Then you can move Tet. That works too. But those are like two of the players that, in terms of buy low candidates, we would look towards as of this moment. Thank you. Okay, Laker Nation sends in a question. It says, Purdy's hurt. I need a quarterback. How high are we on May rest of the season? Well, I like him this week because he plays against Miami. So I think I'm good with him this week. It says he was dropped on the waivers. Other waiver quarterbacks are Lawrence, Stafford, Geno, and Jones. Okay. So as of right now, Lawrence is also another good option taking on Cincinnati this week. Fab budget is 200. I mean, as of right now, I would assume that waivers have already ran. And if they haven't already, then I suppose if you're going to utilize budget on these players, I think the value of what Lawrence or May contribute is identical to one another theoretically. So I'm okay with either of the two. As of right now, in terms of long-term, I think I do prefer Lawrence. How much of my 200 fab am I utilizing? Not very much, because if I miss out on Lawrence, if let's say I put $5 or 5%, so 10, let's say 5 to 10 fab total. If I miss out on Lawrence and I get May, so be it. That's fine. They're not enough of a separation between each other to where I'm like, oh, I have to go get this player. It's not like Justin Fields is available. Lulu11 sends in a question, says, I need help. I have Goddard. Okay. The only available tight ends are Henry, Kraft, Strange, Smith, and Andrews. Okay. Who do I get? So as of right now, considering there is so much value available on the waivers, what I would actually legitimately suggest is going after Brenton Strange and playing him this week because they play against Cincinnati. And then you can theoretically, in the future, go and pick up Kraft for the remainder of the season and or Mark Andrews. I don't even know how Andrews is available, but I can understand it based on the fact that he just scored 1 point. But considering everybody's available here, I'm assuming everybody's teams are stacked here, Lulu. And if I'm just looking for the player that I trust the most this week within the matchup, and I'm just going to stream tight end every week, I'm going with Strange. And then your next question says, what do I do with Worthy? Just put him on your IR until further notice. We really can't do anything with him. Abram sends in a question, says Mahomes, Fields, or Herbert. If we're picking one of those three to play this week, I'm probably leaning towards Fields. Yeah, Fields 1, Herbert 2, Mahomes 3. As for your next question, says Kraft, Fannin, or Juwan Johnson in a full PPR. I'd lean towards Juwan Johnson there in a full PPR this week. It says pick 2 between Moore, Pearsall, Harvey, Coleman, Hollywood Brown, Quentin Johnston, Keenan Allen. Cool. If we're playing in a full PPR situation here, Hollywood Brown is number 1. And it's either Pearsall or Keenan Allen as my number 2. I'd probably, considering now that we know that Mac Jones is for sure going to be the guy, it probably ends up being Hollywood Brown alongside of Keenan Allen there in a full PPR. Thank you. Moving on to a question from Anthony C. Says, Andrew, in a standard, I have Njoku. Should I grab Fannin? Also, I can grab Christian Kirk or for Quentin Johnston. Can drop Christian Kirk for Quentin Johnston. Yeah, let's do that. Let's pick up Quentin Johnston. And yes, please pick up Fannin, but don't drop Njoku. Let's give Njoku another week of run here. And in the event in which he cannot pull it and Fannin's the guy, then you make the swap next week. Thank you. Benny G sends in a question. Says, Andrew, my GOAT, playing my Aussie Super Coach half PPR league. Should I go with Worthy? Should I go Worthy to Brown or Flowers? What do you mean by Worthy to Brown or Flowers? Like, who are we playing this week? I really like, honestly, either of the two. If you're playing in a full PPR, I'd probably rather play Hollywood Brown because I know that we'll just get a flat upside there of just total receptions. But if we're looking at like a half PPR, I'm just going to play with Flowers in my lineup. Thank you. Oh, no, you said half PPR. Yeah, so I'll stick with Flowers there. Raft sends in a question. Rafterat says, 12-man non-PPR, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format. Trevor Lawrence and Hunter, or Love and Scary Terry. Thanks. I would rather have Trevor Lawrence and Travis Hunter this week. Thank you. Michael Zavala sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, pick up Pitts, Strange, or Fannin, or Henry. I would like to pick up 2 of the 4. I'm not going to just pick up 1. Legitimately, I am of the opinion that I would like to pick up Strange to play him this week, and then pick up Fannin, stash him on my bench, and then if he in fact plays well, then I can drop Strange and then play Fannin for the remainder of the season accordingly. Jordy Peasy, what's up, Jordy? Hope you're doing well. Says, in a half PPR, 6 point per quarterback league, 12-man, we have Allen, Genty, Cook, Evans, Devontae Smith, Andrews, Pitts, Sampson, Harvey, Rashi, Braylon, Jaden Higgins, Shakir. What do I do? Or what do you think? Excuse me. I mean, I think you need to pick up another tight end because looking at your bench, you have Shakir, Braylon Allen, Rashi Rice, Harvey. Yeah. So we need another alternative option in case Mark Andrews wants to be a non-factor for the next couple weeks here. So that's what I'm looking towards. I'm still giving Mark Andrews another run at it. But as of right now, I'm still, I'm not 100% feeling great about the situation. So I'd probably end up looking towards Jaden Higgins getting the drop for another alternative tight end. And then everything else looks really solid as of right now. Oh, no, you already have Kyle Pitts. Never mind. You're good. I'm not really making any moves. The only thing that I would theoretically try to advance towards is maybe trying to buy low on an upper tier player, but you'd have to move Rashi Rice in order to accomplish that, which it just becomes a question, Jordy, as to whether or not you want to do that. Do you want to try to move Rashi Rice plus another receiver for one of the kind of upper tier, upper echelon options, theoretically, like a T. Higgins? Carlos Douglas Jr. sends in a question, says, in a full PPR, just traded Tyreek Hill for A.J. Brown. Okay, solid. You got out of it. And I think that's an upgrade for sure. Do you like the deal? I do. I had A.J. Brown ranked higher in my pre-draft rankings, and I'll continue to stick with that as my idea. And do I play Fannin or Jake Ferguson? Tomorrow, I will know the answer for sure. As for confidence, I can't objectively tell you one way or the other. I'm still doing the tight end research for tomorrow's tight end and quarterback rankings video. I think I'm going to lean towards Ferguson because I kind of want to wait and see what Fannin can produce. But the full PPR format does make it a little bit trickier to where I would consider just playing Fannin outright. But I'll have an answer by tomorrow within that video. As for your next question, Pickens or Wando Robinson in the flex? Considering it's a full PPR, we just go with Wando Robinson and the safety of points that he provides. King Carl 2012 says in a full PPR, pick one between Terry, Booty, JCM, Sampson, Pitts, Harvey, and Golden. Golden can't play. Booty is not someone I'm firing up. I'm not going with Harvey. I'm not going Harvey. In the event in which Mooney and potentially London have any sort of setback and don't play, Pitts is the number one. Otherwise, out of this group, it probably just ends up being Terry McLaurin. Valorman1 says, trade my Lamar Jackson / Pacheco for Fields and Amon-Ra. Yes, I would take the Fields Amon-Ra side 10 times out of 10. Full PPR, my teams consist of Gibbs, JSN, McLaurin. Yeah, Genty. I would make that deal. Give me Fields and Amon-Ra rest of the way. The reason why I make that trade, by the way, is because of Amon-Ra. I think Amon-Ra, I'd rather have him than Lamar on my team. And I still get Fields in this circumstance, which is solid. LS sends in a question. Says in a half PPR, flex Kamara, McMillan, Coleman, or Pearsall. Out of those available, considering the half PPR format, give me Kamara. Corey Miller says my question's in the chat. All right, Corey, I'll take care of that in just a moment. Just want to kind of remind you guys, I'm going to be heading out here in about 17 minutes. At 7, let's see, how long have we been here for? Got a little bit of a tight schedule. Yeah. So in 17 minutes, I will be heading out. I do appreciate y'all, but at that point, I'm just going to have to end the stream, and then I'll be back tomorrow after the Thursday night game accordingly as such. For those of you who are members of the Patreon, of course, again, I've mentioned this before, via the Patreon, if you guys want to ask any and all fantasy football related questions, I'm more than happy to answer those, whether it is via the Discord server community access. And of course, I post rankings every Thursday and Sunday. So for those of you who are interested in potentially going down that path, if I'm not able to answer your question this evening, the Patreon is an alternative measure in which you can go ahead and find me outside of the channel in order to help you guys, of course, get one step closer to capturing a 2025 Fantasy Football Championship. Appreciate it. Okay. Corey Miller, let me go ahead and let me see if your question is immediately in the chat. Otherwise, I'll have you retype it in there, my man. Corey Miller says, yo, Kirchhoff, I'm currently 0-1. My team consists of Herbert, Dak. Okay, great. So we're playing Herbert this week, which is fantastic. Bucky, Connor. Great. Those are two good running backs. CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins. Great. Okay, fire them both up as well. You have Tet McMillan, potentially as your flex option. You have Tyler Warren. Beautiful. Aubrey. Beautiful. Any way to improve this team? Honestly, if T. Higgins plays like how he should, I don't see a way in which, and Bucky Irving continues to improve and Connor improves. I don't see a way in which we are explicitly improving this team greatly. Now, in order to do so at an even greater rate, at that point, you're going to wait for like T. Higgins or maybe Tet McMillan to have a breakout performance. And then at that point, you can utilize that leverage to maybe go after, let's say, for example, BTJ has another terrible week and one of your fantasy league managers are having a panic attack after T. Higgins goes for 35 this week, theoretically. Then you can leverage and make a move of where like, oh, I'm sending T. Higgins and Quentin Johnston and making a move after a top tier option. Otherwise, I'm going to tell you to hold. I think you're in a really, really comfortable spot here in a full PPR based on how you've drafted and how everything's kind of laid out week one. I understand, Dak Prescott probably didn't deliver, assuming you played him, and neither did Tet McMillan, T. Higgins. Connor wasn't as great as I anticipated, but going forward should be a lot better, all things considered. Thank you. All right, we continue on with a question that comes in from El Pollo 33, who says, 2 to start in a full PPR, Hill, Etienne, Allen, Moore. Great question. Etienne and Hill are my suggestions as of right now. If you wanted to avoid Hill and you're like, hey, Andrew, I kind of want Hill to prove it before I throw him out there, then you would play Etienne and Allen. Thank you. Sean Waldron. Sean, hope you're doing well, my man. Says in a full PPR, start one running back, Tracy, Walker, Charbonnet. As of right now, the full PPR format legitimately leans me towards playing Tracy. Legitimately. So I have to. I need the receiving workload, and I kind of want to just avoid the toss-up of unfortunately picking the wrong side of Zach Charbonnet and Walker. Goku Edit says, I got offered CMC and Judy for Ladd and Chuba Hubbard. What do you think? I only make a move of this caliber if I have Brian Robinson Jr. Otherwise, I'd feel incredibly nervous about making a move of this caliber because Christian McCaffrey could disappear and your season will be done just like that. So in this circumstance, I would try to get Brian Robinson on roster, and if you can't, maybe you just hold. Anthony O sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, should I trade Keenan Allen for David Montgomery? My running backs are Jonathan Taylor, Aaron Jones, Zach Charbonnet. My wide receivers are Amon-Ra, Debo, Hollywood Brown, Kupp, Tillman, Wandell, and Keenan Allen. This is the way that I see, honestly, your roster. After Hollywood Brown's value has evaporated in the return of Xavier Worthy and or Rashee Rice, After that, you have Cup, which as of right now is an unproven asset. You have Wanda Robinson, which in a full PPR is solid but not great. You have Tillman, who is very much so touchdown dependent, to which Keenan Allen honestly ends up being your flex. So if I'm moving Keenan Allen in order to bring in running back depth, when I can comfortably play Charbonnet and Aaron Jones over David Montgomery as it stands, in a full PPR, I'm holding. Cody Shields says, love Achane, love Achane, Bucky, Puka, Olave, T-Mac, Marquise Hollywood-Brown, Pacheco, McBride, Worthy. Would you trade Tyler Warren for Travion Henderson? Okay. What other moves should I make? I mean, honestly, so you would have to theoretically go after a team that doesn't have tight end depth. And if they were going to send back Travion Henderson, considering you have McBride, I'd say yes, I'm willing to make that deal because it gives you running back depth that can be eventually your flex blind for the remainder of the season. So I have no problem with that at all. Leap Link AFF says, should I trade Egbuka and Kenneth Walker for Nico Collins? It gets you out of the Kenneth Walker run, and Egbuka gets to be cashed in before Godwin's return. I'm down with it. Coolest nerd ever says, Andrew, my guy, in a half PPR. I have BTJ as my wide receiver 1. Who should I put as my wide receiver 2 in flex this week? All right, coolest. Let's see what you have here. Garrett Wilson, Ladd McConkey, DK Metcalf, Kenneth Walker. Of your available options, Ladd McConkey and Garrett Wilson are your 2 most valuable in a half PPR. That's the direction that I'm going to lean with, and which is exactly what you had in mind. So yeah, I'm just here to confirm your bias. That is the way to go. Miracle Robinson says, I'm late. Happy birthday. Thanks, my man. I appreciate that. Fantasy Forecast says, should I have him also throw in Herbert for my Kyler? I'd have to go all the way up to see what your previous question was, Forecast, to just remind myself exactly. Okay, so you were saying my running backs are Swift, Bucky, Sharp, and Montgomery. Should I trade my injured Kittle for JC? Okay, so theoretically, if you were able to upgrade at quarterback in this potential trade option, then sure. Yes, theoretically speaking, if you're able to get an additional upgrade, that's fine. Prohibit sends in a question. Says Chase Brown, Coleman, Golden for Neighbors, and Pollard. Okay, interesting. You know, here's the thing about Pollard. Pollard's value is about to, unfortunately, get diminished once the return of Spears occurs. So I am more in the business of trying to utilize Pollard for the next 2 weeks than trade him prior to the return of Tyjae Spears. I don't know if I'm trading for Pollard explicitly. In the case of the assets that you get in return, I think I'm holding. Tan Fam sends in a question. Thank you, Tan. I appreciate it. Says in a half PPR flex, Charbonnet, Pure Salt, or DJ. I fumbled the last play more. That's actually a good nickname. I like that. Next video, I'll make sure to make, actually, no, probably not, because DJ Moore is going to play well this week and he'll be fine. PPR, RB2, Aaron Jones, Pollard, or Charbonnet. Okay. So between those available options, Pollard is my suggestion as your RB2 this week. But as for your earlier question, am I flexing Charbonnet, Pearsall, or DJ Moore? I would rather play Pearsall there. Thank you. Sherney sends in a question, or Sherney says, where do you have Henry versus Jonnu in a full PPR? I'd rather play Hunter Henry. The volume of target opportunity, I think, is a little bit too sweet for me to avoid. On top of the fact that, of course, Hunter Henry is going to be following in the footsteps of Tyler Warren, who had himself an incredible week this most recent contest against Miami's defense. So yeah, I'm going to go with Hunter Henry there. Arjun sends in a question, says, hey, I need help to pick a quarterback between Dak and Justin Fields. Absolutely, without a doubt, playing Justin Fields. Second question, RB, Tracy, Dylan Sampson, Pacheco, Krosky, Merritt. I play Tracy there, especially if it's a full PPR. If it's a standard league, I go Krosky, Merritt. If we're in a half PPR, I'd probably still go Tracy. Next, the 806 says Penix or Lawrence rest of the season. I'm going to lean towards playing Lawrence there rest of the season. Still, I'm not giving it up just after one game. I understand he has inaccuracy issues, but I think over time, Liam Cohen will work that out of his system. Rob Monahan sends in a question. Says, I got cooked last week. I'm stacked at running back, weak at wide receiver, in a full PPR. Pick 2 between Terry, DJ, Sutton. Also, I have Njoku and Goddard. Should I drop and waiver? Okay, so as of right now, you should probably look towards, if in the event that Goddard doesn't play, probably looking towards trying to get another tight end in order to fill in for Goddard. So which I would look towards a Juwan Johnson or a Harold Fannin. As for Terry, DJ, and Sutton, it's Sutton and DJ as of right now. But I would also say if you're stacked at running back, maybe there's an opportunity for you to potentially go and look for some of the upper tier potential options. Like me suggesting go after Nico Collins and BTJ is more of like a pipe dream rather than going after someone like T. Higgins, which I think may be a little bit more accessible and or attainable within this circumstance. Mo Money has sent in a question. I appreciate you sending that through. Mo Money, let's see where is your question here. It says, what moves and trades should I make? In a 10-team PPR redraft with 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 2 flex, my quarterbacks consist of Fields and Dak. Great, you're going to play Fields. Amon-Ra, BTJ, JSN, Worthy, Odunze, beautiful, stacked at wide receiver. Kamara, Connor, Travion Henderson, Harvey, Judkins, and Mixon, Njoku, and Juwan Johnson. I don't make any moves here, brother. I think you're in a really solid position because you're not going to trade away any of your wide receivers because they are clearly your advantage point in a double wide receiver, double flex, full PPR. So you have the opportunity of starting Amon-Ra, BTJ, JSN, and Odunze until Worthy returns every week for the remainder of the season. To which then you are also going to be playing Connor and Kamara as your RBs, and you will wait until Travion Henderson and Harvey become sustainable options to where you can blindly start them. You play Juwan Johnson until Njoku can potentially kind of prove otherwise, and Fields is fantastic. So I'm not really out there trying to make moves. In the event in which, Judkins is far more valuable than we anticipated and is a unstoppable machine, you could leverage that into a trade, or you could look to trade your alternative options like a Connor and Kamara effectively. The only thing that I would ever consider with this team is if you end up having to drop a player or can put Worthy in your IR because he misses this week, I go pick up potentially a handcuff like Trey Benson for Connor just in case. Thank you, Mo Money. Appreciate it. Okay. So I see a bunch of questions sent in, 5 more here via Super. Again, these are probably going to be the final 5 questions. I got to be out of here in about 6 minutes. So we continue on with Lee Flores, who says in a half PPR trade, McBride and Walker for Aaron Jones and Quentin Johnston. Running backs consist of Walker, Charbonnet, Harvey, and Caleb Johnson. Okay, trade McBride and Kenneth Walker for Aaron Jones and Quentin Johnston. I would much rather have McBride and Kenneth Walker rest of season. Thank you. Easy E sends in a question. Says in a full PPR, I have Trevor Lawrence, Penix. I have Gibbs, Connor, Pearsall. I traded Ladd, London, Odunze, and Hampton for Chase and Henderson. Tight end are JJ, Coleman, McMillan, Harvey. Okay. So what is the actual question here? Because I have the context, Easy E. Now, what is the actual follow-up question to this circumstance? I'm actually curious. If you can let me know what the follow-up is in this circumstance, I'm curious. Thanks, man. Until then, Charles sends in a question. Thank you, Charles. I hope you're doing well. Says in a 12-team full PPR, my question's in the chat. All right, Charles, where are that question? He says Henry Hubbard, Puka, Sutton, Laporta, Myers. My bench consisting of Rice, Booty, Charbonnet, Reed, Braylon, Javonte Williams, and Ayuk in the IR. Should I pick up Fannin for Booty? Both more? Yes, I would. I don't want Booty on my team. I would rather have Fannin because being able to strike on one of the every season about 3 to 4 on average over the course of the last 5 seasons, over the course of that span of time, 2019 to 2024, there have been on average about 3 to 4 tight ends every year that come out of nowhere and are first-time tight end ones. Fannin could be that guy. So in this circumstance, I would rather roster him than Booty. Booty is a guy that is purely running he's sprinting down the field. He is running 9 routes. He is just legitimately running down the sideline. And yes, he has looked good in the last, 3 of the last 4 games that he has played with Drake May. But I think the idea of potentially having the value point of a go-to tight end in the future and having him on my bench just for a couple weeks here, while I don't have to play him and not have to risk it, I think that is more valuable, and I'm willing to go that path. Thank you, Charles. JK sends in a question. Says in a full PPR, trade away Kamara for Hampton. I don't mind it. Honestly, I do not mind it. I think that Hampton, in association with this offense, is going to be really valuable. I think Kamara and his injury history kind of lead us towards that idea. And while you're able to kind of buy low on Hampton, based on what I saw from that offense being so successful through the air, I think it just gives me more confidence that when they hand it off against any other team that is not the Chiefs, Hampton's going to start moving bodies. Anthony Marr says, bench consists of Harvey, JCM, Shakir, Hollywood, replace with Fannin. If I was going to replace any of those options with Fannin, theoretically speaking, it would be Shakir, because Harvey and JCM are too valuable to drop outright, and Hollywood should be starting this week. Shakir, in my mind, is also in a full PPR, a top 40 wide receiver every week. But the issue that revolves around this is that who's your number 1 tight end, Anthony Marr? Says in a half-point PPR, I have Tyler Warren. I hear big. Yeah, look, there is big upside with Fannin. So if you want to take the risk, you certainly can. And in a half PPR, because Shakir isn't as solidified as a top 40 option every week out because he doesn't score touchdowns, I'm okay with it. Because again, there is enough implied potential upside within the risky play. All right, let me see what Easy E's follow-up was. It says, thoughts on the trade. Okay, yeah, thoughts on the trade. Thank you. I appreciate you clarifying that. So if you traded Ladd, London, Adunze, and Hampton for Chase and Henderson, I'm going to be honest, I don't love the trade because theoretically in this circumstance, we ended up trading Ladd, London, and Ladd, London, and Hampton, which are it's basically 2 third-round picks and 1 second-round pick in a 12-team league. For a first and maybe a fifth, and then you get a Adunze, which is like an 8th. In terms of trade value, technically speaking, I think I rather would have had the Ladd, London, Hampton side of this circumstance. Assuming they're all starters on your team. If they're not all starters, then sure. Like if you have to sit one of them, but I don't love it. Because the issue is, it's not like, oh, Jamar Chase is the problem. No, it's not Jamar Chase. It's how long do I have to wait for Henderson to be valuable? How long do I have to wait for him to be relevant? Because if he's not immediately relevant, I think you're losing out on a little bit of value in the short term, which could lose you a lot of valuable games here. Thank you. All right, we move on to a question that comes in from Choobs McGee. Choobs, hope you're doing well, my man. This is on a 12-team full PPR super flex. I lost Purdy. Flex, Ted McMillan or Bryce Young? Wow. In a full PPR, Ted McMillan or Bryce Young, I think I just have to go with Bryce Young there. Very seldom am I ever going to not play the quarterback in a super flex format. Thanks, man. Charles says, my first question is supposed to say Hurts, not Henry twice. Okay, got it, Charles. I mean, in terms of the context of the question as a whole, it's a really strong team. If you just want to hear my thoughts across the board, you're in a really solid spot. The only thing now is just pretty much picking up Fannin for booty and seeing how that kind of transpires. Heath Evans sends in a question. Heath, hope you're doing well. Says, I need help, my guy. Yeah, let's see what your question is. Where's your... I don't see your question immediately in the chat, but maybe you've typed it earlier. Maybe you can retype it for me, Heath. Thanks, man. Until then, Ant Banks sends in a question. Says, help, Andrew. Bo Nix or McCarthy? As of right now, going into this week, tomorrow we will get a confirmed answer from me via my quarterback rankings video. Until then, I'm leaning towards Nix because I'm not willing to give up on him yet. But there's a possibility that I may be possessed and I may play McCarthy against the Falcons considering Baker just torched him. So for right now, I'm considering it, but I'm not 100% ready to commit there. Colts defense looked decent. They look decent because they played Miami. If you have an opportunity of picking up New England's defense and playing them this week, could be a good idea. Also, I have Warren against Denver, which is not a problem, but I also have Hunter against Miami. I also have Hunter against... Travis. Oh, sorry. No, you have Hunter Henry. That's what you meant, not Travis Hunter. Yeah, I'm still playing Warren there. He is pretty much he's the focal point of that offense. He opens up everything. Heath Evans says, it's a lot. What's a lot? Your question? If it's too much here, it may be a problem because, like I was mentioning before, it's 7:45, and this is when I have to close out the stream. So I'm going to patiently wait here, Heath, for you to please type out the question because otherwise... my hours has come and gone, and I do not have any more time to live stream this afternoon. I want to thank you guys for, of course, coming out, asking questions. If you guys want to continue to potentially ask me questions for the remainder of the season, of course, you could check out the Patreon. Again, I've mentioned this already. But if you're someone who just wants to come in here for the vibes, try to, of course, pull some ideas from what I mentioned over the course of answering other people's questions via proxy, I appreciate it. Again, if you guys want my Sunday morning rankings, again, Better's the way to potentially do it, in which we... sign up there. If you're eligible, you can get my Sunday morning rankings so that you don't even have to ask questions come Sunday morning because, the rankings will be there for both half full PPR, flex, all positions. So where you'll know the answer to my question or to your questions before you even have to ask them. So if that's something that you're interested in, again, all you have to do is use code Andrew to sign up, make that first time deposit minimum of $10 and make that first time play within a real cash play. Again, that is the very vital part, making that real cash play within the $10 that you deposited. Once you do that, picking more or less on two-player statistics, you're good to go and available to get my rankings for the remainder of the season. Heath says, gotcha. I'm typing it. All right. Said very well. Until then, Drewski 15 says full PPR, two wide receivers and one flex. Adams, Sutton, Pearsall, Pollard. In a full PPR, I am very comfortable with the idea of playing Sutton and Pearsall. Then it becomes a toss-up between Adams and Pollard. I think I might be low on Adams this week. So probably let's just go Adams there. Let's go Adams, Sutton, Pearsall in this circumstance. Football, what's up, my man? How you doing, Andrew? I'm doing pretty well. Again, there's not enough hours in the day. That's really just the issue. I wish there was more hours. But hey, it is what it is. And I'm sure many of you guys who come home from work, you probably agree the same way. As soon as, you get home, you're like, what the heck? It's time to go to sleep already. What the heck's going on? I just wish there was more time in the day. That's basically it. Would you trade Achane for London and Charbonnet? I definitely would consider it if you need that wide receiver. Like Achane and London are both technically second-round picks in this most recent draft. So in terms of draft capital there, you're adding onto it a starting potential running back in the form of Charbonnet. I don't mind that. Kamikaze, what's up, my man? Kamikaze says, I have Drake May, I have Jefferson, I have McLaurin, I have Achane, Bucky, Pollard, Egbuka, and Njoku. My bench consisting of DJ Moore, Loveland, Blue, Dobbins, Ollie Gordon. Should I trade Dobbins for Warren? Worried about the tight end position. You know what? I actually don't explicitly mind that. I think you've got enough depth to be able to pull it off. I don't mind it. Yeah, because you get Warren, who's technically going to be this year's Bowers per se. Maybe not 111 receptions, but definitely up in that overall category to where he's going to be in the top 5 tight end conversation when it's all said and done this year. Nick sends in a question. Says, okay, this is the final super chat. Please do not send any more. I appreciate y'all, but I'm going to have to end the stream after Nick and Heath's questions here. Nick says, start 2 wide receivers in a flex. We have St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, BTJ, Marvin Harrison, Evans, Egbuka, Hollywood on the waivers. Okay, so if I was in your position, I would start St. Brown, I'd pick up Hollywood, and I would play him, and I would also play BTJ in this circumstance. In the event in which you're like, Andrew, I don't want to drop any of these players for Hollywood, then you just play St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, and BTJ. Thank you. Heath Evans says, Lamar, David Montgomery, Darnell Mooney, Evan Ingram, Calvin Ridley, 4, Justin Fields, Derrick Henry, Garrett Wilson, Trey McBride. Yes. I would rather have the Justin Fields, Derrick Henry, Garrett Wilson, Trey McBride side, and it's not even remotely close. That is the better side of the deal. Heath, thank you. BB Waller says, hey Andrew, in a half PPR flex, Devontae Smith or Jordan Mason. Give me Devontae Smith there in an advantageous matchup. Tomasi, I see you in here all the time, so I'll answer your question real quick. What's up? Says running backs are Genty, Jacobs, Achane. Someone offered me Achane for Charbonnet. Someone offered Achane and Sharp. I don't understand the question now. J Padge, I always see you in here. It says, I need to start 2. Henderson, Montgomery, Pearsall, Charbonnet, Harvey, Pittman. As of right now, it's probably Pearsall alongside of Charbonnet in this circumstance. Patrick, what's up? Says full PPR Jacobs and DJ Moore for Fields, Hampton, and Najee. I have Knicks. I would rather... It depends. No, I'd rather have Jacobs. Thank you. All right, guys. Is there anything else I missed? Joey, what's up? Says, would you play McCarthy over Herbie? I wouldn't this week. I would rather play Herbie. We took care of that. Good to go. All right, guys. I appreciate y'all. Much love. Have a great rest of your night. And that's basically it. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to cue the wonderful double helix. And until next time, I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Live streaming after the game. Peace.